After watching the new Superman movie in theaters, which I absolutely adored, Superman has been one of the main things in my nerd brain, so I wanted to go back and rewatch, not rewatch, I wanted to watch for my first time the first ever feature-length Superman movie that hit the big screens in 1951. Yeah, not the one that you might all be thinking of and that I thought of. No, in 1951, before we had Superman, we had Superman and the Mole Men. Does this black and white movie from 1951 hold up today? The movie opens up, and after a narrator briefly brings the audience up to speed on who Superman is, again, this is the very first movie of Superman, so audiences had not seen Superman be rocketed from the exploding planet of Krypton to the farm in Kansas over and over and over and over again. We open right away on a bit of a small-scale mystery for a Superman movie, but something that piqued my interest nonetheless. This mining foreman, Mr. Corrigan, instructs his men to put their expensive equipment in a hole and bury it. And when a car is coming down the hill, he stashes some sack away in a shack. Suspicious stuff. The car carries Clark Kent and Lois Lane, who have come to do a feature story on the oil well, as it is the deepest well in the world. And the head of PR for the oil company, Mr. Craig, set this meeting up. He seems like a nice enough guy. He even brought oranges for Pops, the older watchman, who is very excited about his gift of oranges. But nobody's told Mr. Craig until now that the whole operation is being shut down on Mr. Corrigan's orders. After noticing the equipment being buried, Clark decides to go back to the site at night to snoop around. Lois decides to join him, and when he teases her by saying, "What do you expect to find there this time of night, Miss Lane?" she retorts, "Whatever you're expecting to find." I like that little glimpse into their friendly reporter rivalry. It's the kind of stuff that I'm used to from the Superman animated series. At night, the Mole Men emerge from the hole and creep up on the Watchmen. He sees them, is so startled that he has a heart attack and dies. The next scene we see is Lois and Clark finding the Watchman's body. God, man was just trying to enjoy his oranges. And Lois sees the Mole Men as well. Soon the Mole Men make their way into the town. A mob is starting to form. Clark tries to calm down the mob by saying, "Don't you see, if you run around shooting at shadows, someone's liable to get hurt?" The one guy who's really rallying the mob is like, "No, we gotta get these animals, these monsters out of our town. This is our town. We're not gonna have no outsider tell us what to do." So things start to escalate quickly when the Mole Men run and flee on top of a dam. One of them is shot even after Superman tries to go and dissuade the mob himself. We see him bend a gun on camera, being like, "I can stop you anytime I want, don't do this." But they shoot one of the Mole Men, who Superman reveals to the mob might be radioactive. That's what Mr. Corrigan was so worried about. He had seen these glowing substances the deeper down they dig. So we've got some radiation fear, we've got some xenophobia fear, a very 1950s creeping beginning of the Cold War Red Scare era stuff. In fact, a lot of the themes of this movie reminded me, and as I looked online to check, this movie came out the same year as The Day the Earth Stood Still. Obviously that's a classic. This one is not. The production value is a lot lower, though they do burn down a tool house shed. But you know what? For 1951, kind of not fully TV movie, because that really wasn't a thing, but just like a small 50-minute feature thing. Decent budget. The flying wasn't bad for the time. And for everyone who's nowadays saying, "Superman has gone so woke, what the hell's happened?" You're making shit up. He's always been woke. He stands in front of the mob as they're outside the hospital. Superman had brought the shot Mole Men to the hospital to get recovered, which is even a debate among the doctors there. One of them we'll do the operation. And the other one's like, if he's not out of here by tomorrow, I'm in charge and you'll be fired and all of that stuff. So the mob goes to the hospital to try to finish off what they did to that one mole man, and Superman stands defiantly in front saying, now I'm going to give you one last chance to stop acting like Nazi stormtroopers. I mean, if the parallels are paralleling. And to be fair for Lois, she's not always on the side of the mole men either. She is suspicious of them too, but she sees Clark and Superman's reasoning and isn't out for blood like the rest of the mob is. So even though she's still on the fence of whether they are good or not, she still stands defiantly in front of the mob with Mr. Corrigan. And the main mob person says, "Get her out of the way, Corrigan, before she gets hurt." And Lois says, "Mr. Corrigan doesn't have to get me out of the way. I can get out of the way myself if I feel like it. But I just don't feel like it." And for 1951, I mean, that's pretty good. Then guns start firing at this standoff. Superman quickly pulls Lois out of the way of a bullet that almost hits her. And he looks the crowd down and says, "Whoever fired that shot came close to killing Miss Lane. Obviously, none of you can be trusted with guns, so I'm going to take them away from you." I mean, Superman was the first Democratic leader trying to take guns away from all of the conservative Second Amendment folks. I mean, listen, it's not me, it's Superman. It's the 1951 Superman. If you're saying he's gone woke, it shows how little you know. The movie ends with some mole men coming out to rescue their injured comrade in the hospital. They have some like sci-fi gun with them because they've been met with potentially deadly force. They're not going around shooting everybody, but they're going to protect themselves as they go rescue their person. And of course, seeing that, the main instigator of the mob is ready to shoot these mole men down. A shoot-off happens where he's getting shot with some beam that is not an insta-kill kind of thing, but like hurting him, killing him, makes him drop his gun, he's spasming in pain. Superman stands in front of the beam and convinces the mole men to stand down, and everything is able to resolve peacefully, like it should have just happened in the future. The mole men not once in this movie show ill intent until they are attacked first. They come out of the hole and they're just interested in these strange-looking people. They naturally live underground in this version of reality, so they're just looking at the Watchmen, who is frightened and has a heart attack and dies. They go around and they're looking at flowers because they've never seen that before. They spot a child in her room. The child does not react with fear, so they have a nice interaction with the child. They are not here to cause harm until harm is done and instigated by these fear-mongering xenophobes. So Superman saves this man's life, and when he shocked for all the guff he's given Superman. I mean, he's shot bullets at Superman. He's tried to punch him. They got in a couple altercations. He just looks at Superman and says, "You saved my life." And Superman, not even looking back at him, says, "That's more than you deserve." And that moment actually sent some like chills down my spine, because Superman's acknowledging like, yeah, you're a piece of garbage. I'm not going to pretend you're not. Saving your life was more than you deserve. They had every right to kill you, but he is all for truth and justice and peace, ultimately, is what he's going for. If they killed a human, then there's going to be retaliation nonstop, but this way, there are some injuries, but nobody dies. Superman helps the injured mole man go back to the hole that they came out of. The mole men set fire to the shaft and the oil rig, sealing it up. And the closing line of the movie is Lois looking on the burning fire and saying, it's almost as if they're saying, you live your life and we'll live ours. Live and let live is ultimately the moral of this story. And I think that it's a lesson, unfortunately, that still hasn't been learned. Now, I'm not going to say that this Superman movie is a technological wonder. It wasn't. It was fine for its time. None of the acting was super stellar. But for the time that it was written at, Lois was not like some damsel in distress. She had her own thoughts and motivations, and Clark and Superman always takes her seriously, even when some other men in the movie do not. And Superman stands up for the weak and those in danger at every moment. That's who Superman is, and it's just really nice to see that since his first feature film in 1951, all the way to the latest iteration in 2025, that's who Superman is. Someone inspiring humanity to be open-minded, to not be afraid of others, to be a decent person. So yeah, I don't think this was a particularly great movie that I've seen. If I had to give it a rating out of like 10 stars, I'd give it a 6. It was fine. It did what it set out to do in 50 minutes, from 1951. It certainly wasn't unwatchable. The chase sequence in the middle was a little long, so I would trim some of that out, and I think they ultimately did when this movie spawned a television series, The Adventures of Superman. They made this movie a 2-parter episode, and to do that, they cut out some of the chase sequence, and I think that would have made the pacing a lot better. So, yeah, I think ultimately this is a pretty fine first version of Superman on the screen, and seeing him flying the way that he does, I mean, in 1951, that's gotta be pretty cool. So, hell yeah, Superman. I don't have much else to say other than Superman's always been woke. So, if you don't like that, maybe you're the bad guy. And keep on being punk rock.